This is the 2015 Mazda 3 hatchback with a 1.5-liter naturally aspirated engine. It has more than 100,000 kilometers on the clock. And the ultimate question is, does it still live up to its reputation as a spectacular sharp handling machine? Let's find out in this review. We're now back in AutoTune Media with another car review. For this episode, we have this 2015 Mazda 3. But before we begin, please consider subscribing to our channel. And if you like what we're doing here, please show your support. Hit that like button and share this video so we can keep creating more content like this. And don't forget to leave your comments down below. The first thing that I want to talk about this car is its exterior design. So back when this car was first released in 2015, I honestly thought that it was a very futuristic design because at that time cars were a little bit more rounded, a little bit more conservative, especially before cars evolved the way how they look. And at that time, for me, this car has the most futuristic design. But comparing this car today with modern offerings, especially those that has come out in the past few years, this car actually looks more toned down. It no longer looks like this very futuristic looking car, and instead it kind of blends in with older car models, and that's what I actually really like about this car in terms of exterior design. And even though it's already 10 years old, it still won't get left behind in terms of good looks when comparing it to more modern offerings nowadays, either from Japanese manufacturers or on Chinese manufacturers. And if you like a more simplistic looking car today, this one is actually what you should get. Well, of course, the 2025 Mazda 3 has already evolved in terms of exterior looks. It now features more sharp headlights, more sharp taillights. But in terms of design, that car hasn't actually, deviated that far from what this car looks like. And I think it's because this design language is what actually made Mazda's design more iconic. And so if you are in the market for a second-hand car, this one is really worth considering because, as I said, it still looks modern, and at the same time it doesn't look very futuristic, and because of that I think it will age very well in the coming years. And now let's talk about the engine, and I'll be very upfront to you. The engine of this car is actually not my favorite amongst all of its features. The reason why the engine isn't the highlight of this car, at least in my opinion, is because it feels a bit lacking in terms of power and torque. And by the way, this is a 1.5-liter naturally aspirated engine. So there is no forced induction via turbocharger happening in here. And if you're like me, who's used to driving a turbocharged diesel engine, the experience is significantly different. But of course, it isn't fair to compare this one to a turbocharged diesel engine because nowadays, turbocharged diesel engines can be high performing, right? And so let's just talk about this engine on its own. When driving alone in this car, you will not notice that the engine is underpowered. But once you use this car as a family sedan or one which you use to carry people around with you whenever you're driving, the power limitations of the engine will show. And it will have difficulties going at higher speeds. And so I think that if you're buying a car, specifically a Mazda 3 with a 1.5-liter engine, and you're planning to use it as a family sedan or something where you carry your friends around, this one will not be the best choice because of the limiting factor in terms of power and torque of the engine. But I'm not saying that when you're carrying people in this car, it becomes slower. But instead, it will just take more time for the car to accelerate and to get up to speed. And so I don't think that it's reasonable to expect an immediate power delivery from this car, especially if you're using it to carry other people. And because of that, I think this car was designed for people who drive alone most of the time, for people who are going to use this car as a service going to and from work, or to drive alone going on different places, or maybe for couples who want to drive around in a more relaxed pace, because this car doesn't really have a lot of power under its bonnet. This car, it's mainly geared towards city driving or for short distances, and when you're driving on areas with heavy traffic, that's where this car shines, because first, it's very comfortable in terms of ride. The 1.5 liter engine is not very thirsty in terms of consumption, especially when you're sitting on heavy traffic. And so if this car is not the one that you should choose for long trips or for family drives, the question is, what car should you use? The version of this car with a 2 liter engine will be the best option for you, because the Mazda 3 with a 2.0 liter engine will have more power on tap, and you will really appreciate the engine's power when you're going on long trips, and when you're driving on highways such as NLEX SC-Tex, where at times you need to have more power on tap when overtaking or when cruising slightly above the speed limit. But of course, with a bigger engine, expect your fuel economy to not be as good as this one, especially when in heavy traffic situations. But when going on higher speeds, bigger engines tend to be more economical because they have more power way down the rev range, and of course it will require less effort for the engine to get up to speed. And so choosing a car between 1.5 liter and a 2.0 liter engine, specifically when talking about Mazda 3, is like knowing for sure what you really want from the car and what you expect from the car. Considering everything that I said, does that mean that the Mazda 3's 1.5 liter engine has poor performance? Well, for me, I have mixed feelings about it. But since I already know what to expect about the car and I know what it's designed for, when you take that into account when you're using this car, you won't ask for more from it. And so right now that I'm driving this car alone, the car doesn't feel underwhelming in any way. And as I said, it's what this car is designed for. And now let's talk about the transmission of this car. And for me, this transmission is one of the highlights of this car. For me, the shifting is very smooth. And, dare I say, it's buttery smooth. Because when you're driving this car and when you're cruising at lower to moderate speeds, just like what we're doing right now, you won't actually feel the car shifting to a higher gear. Or you won't even feel it shifting to lower gears when you get to a lower speed. And when you're very gentle with the throttle when driving this car, it's like the transmission is non-existent. It's like driving an electric car with no gears. That's how smooth the transmission is. But of course, once you get more heavy on the throttle, and for example in situations where you're about to overtake, or when you're driving and you abruptly step on the throttle pedal, you will feel the transmission kicking to a lower gear. And so I think that the transmission of this car is well made, and it actually complements the overall drivability or the overall driving dynamics of the car. It can be very lively if you drive it spiritedly, and it can also be very tame and relaxing to drive if you're just, cruising on lower speeds. And so for me, I really love the transmission of this car. One more thing that you need to know about this car's transmission is that it comes with paddle shifters as well. So if you want more excitement out of your car, you could simply switch it to manual mode using this shift lever here, and you can shift, or you can, play along with different gears using these paddle shifters behind the steering wheel. Or you can also shift to a higher or to a lower gear using this the automatic shifter here. And for an engine with the lower displacement like this one, driving it in manual mode is actually a way to squeeze more power out of the engine. And so when I'm driving this car with other people, I usually drive it on manual mode in order for me to shift later, or to drive the car at a higher rev range and squeeze more pulling power from it. And if you combine this transmission with the car's behavior on the road, especially if you're driving it spiritedly on twisty roads or on mountain roads going up hills, and combining it with other characteristics such as its braking performance and its handling and its suspension, you will appreciate its transmission. But yeah, for me, the transmission in this car is superb, and there's nothing to complain about. Now let's talk about this car's braking performance. This car comes with 4 disc brakes on all wheels, and because of that, you can expect a good braking performance out of the car. And for me, this car's braking is more than enough. It's powerful enough, and you could rely on its braking capabilities, especially in emergency situations. And the car actually behaves very well when braking heavily. One thing worth considering about the brake feel of this car is that for you to feel the biting point of the brakes, you have to press the brake pedal deeper. But it's very easy to familiarize yourself with the braking of this car because, as I mentioned, the car's behavior in terms of braking and even on heavy braking is very linear. And so overall, I like this car's braking performance. And now let's talk about handling and suspension, because I think it's also very worthwhile to talk about handling and suspension while we're talking about brakes, because the braking behavior of a car and the overall stopping power of a car can also be attributed to its handling and suspension. This car's handling is very precise. The handling performance is very sharp, and when you point the steering wheel in a direction, the car will comply, and it does so very gracefully. And I think that precise handling characteristics of this car can be attributed to its stiff suspension. Yes, this car comes with a stiffer suspension, and because of that, there is no noticeable body roll when you're turning the steering wheel, whether on high speeds or low speeds. The suspension feel is very firm when you're driving this car. And the combination of this precise handling and stiffer suspension really makes the car shine in terms of driving dynamics, especially when you're driving it more spiritedly on mountain roads, on twisty roads. And so if you combine those 3 things, the paddle shifters, the sharp handling, and the stiff suspension, you'll have a car that's very lively to drive, and one that can give you excitement if you want to, but at the same time, one that you can drive leisurely whenever you want as well. But even though the suspension of this car is primarily stiff, it is also very compliant when you're driving this car with other people. It still provides enough cushioning whenever you're driving on unpaved roads, and even when you're driving on mild off-road terrains, the suspension has enough play to make the ride still comfortable. And for a 10-year-old car, this Mazda 3 still rides so well, it handles so well, it performs overall very well, and so it's still faultless. We can't end this video without talking about this car's interior features, and so let's talk about the things that I like and some of the things that I don't like too much about this car. If you remember at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that the exterior of this car is very toned down, it's very simplistic, right? And those characteristics are carried over to the interior of this car. And so when you look at the interior, you will notice that there are no out-of-this-world designs, there are no hidden flares, there are no hidden features, and instead, what you see is what you get. It's very simple, it's very functional, and everything that you need to control while driving is within hand's reach. So down here you have 3 knobs for your air conditioning control. This first knob is to turn the aircon on and off and to adjust the temperature or to activate the heater and the cooler. This second knob, it has its fan control and the vent control. And on the third knob, it has its wind direction control. And that's it. Aside from these knobs in this dashboard, there are no other nonsense features displayed anywhere. And in here you have your aircon vents. So you have 2 at the middle and 1 on the left and 1 on the right. And these aircon vents are wrapped with this brushed aluminum looking plastic trim, and it's not metal, it's plastic, but even after 10 years there's no visible fade on them. Same as with the door handles. The door handles are also like aluminum finish and there are no fades on them as well. The center console of this car is this tiny screen over here at the top of the dashboard, and this one is a touchscreen, so other features that you can't access using these buttons can be accessed via this center console. And one safety feature that I really like about this center console is that it's touchscreen, but once you get going or once the car is moving, the touchscreen is deactivated, and so you can only control it using the buttons down here below the shift lever. So down here you have this larger knob that you can also push to the left, right, up, down, and you can also twist this knob to navigate the center console, and when you press it, it's like pressing enter. Around it you also have other buttons for other features, and this tiny knob beside this bigger knob is the volume knob. So it's what you use to make the radio louder, or if you want to mute it when you're talking to other people inside the car. Also, this car still comes with a handbrake, which if you watched my previous video, you'll know that I really like manual handbrake levers. And of course, the one thing that you touch all of the time when you're driving this car is the steering wheel. This steering wheel is wrapped with leather, and this leather still looks great and feels great even after 10 years of use. I like the stitching of this leather steering wheel. Since this is a base model Mazda 3, it has basic controls on the steering wheel. So you have your volume up, volume down, the information control button over here, some buttons as well to control the music, to answer call or to drop calls. And aside from that, there's no other buttons. The interior is very simple, and even the instrument cluster in here, it's very symmetrical physically. So at the center you have your speedometer, and at the right you have your tachometer, which is digital, and on the left you have another digital screen here, which I mainly use to see my range or how much fuel is left inside the car. And overall, I like how this car is designed inside and outside, and I think it actually complements my preferences in terms of the things that I use. It's very simple, it doesn't attract more attention than what's needed. It simply blends in with the rest of the cars. What could have been improved in this car is the interior space, because physically when you look at this car, it's actually big compared to other mid-sized sedans, and so you might expect that it has more interior space, but you're wrong. The interior of this car is very limited in terms of space, and that's also one of the reasons why I mentioned that this car is best for those people who most of the time drive alone, going to and from work, or going on personal errands. And so in my sitting position right now, I could barely fit behind me. That's how limited the space is. And so if you're expecting to fit 5 adults inside the car, well, you might be disappointed. But of course, if you drive alone, you could adjust the chair to maximize your space here at the driver's seat, and you'll really have a great time driving this car. In addition to the interior space of this car, another thing that could have been improved in this car is the number of cup holders available to the driver and to the passengers, because this car only has two cup holders here at the center, and if you put two large cups in here, you'll have a hard time getting one of those cups. And if you put a bottle here, the bottle will not be placed securely, and so it plays around while you drive. Be that as it may, even though it only has two cup holders here, it has large bottle holders on all its four doors. And so if you want to bring your own water while driving, you could simply put your larger bottles, beside you. And if you want to buy a beverage while driving, you could simply put them here, no problems. The Mazda 3 has undeniably etched its mark in the Philippine car scene. It has established itself as this good-looking Japanese car that won't be out of place wherever it goes, either in upscale places or on ordinary Philippine roads. It's a handsome car, no doubt, but to me, what really characterizes the Mazda 3 is its driving dynamics. It's just a pleasure to drive. And even if the one we reviewed has been driven around for the past decade, it didn't lose its sharpness. It still is this spectacular driving machine that will truly put a smile on your face if you know how to push its limits. This has been Enzo from AutoTune. Till next time.